Late start, probably standard start for Fridays, I'm afraid, but I was at work a little bit later, but I had a few errands to run as well, and I actually only just made dinner. Now, I have not eaten dinner, but I wanted to try and have a fighting chance to get an early enough start to the stream compared to what I otherwise would have done. So what I might do just during the breaks or something like that, I might take a couple of bites. But I imagine you're all watching the Olympics now anyway, right? It's big sports watch and stream, I'm sure. So let's jump into House of Light. So I've been trying to juggle the playthroughs. I have a little bit of bad news for the VOD folks, by the way. So I was uploading the videos, and for whatever reason, the very first session of House of Light did not seem to upload to YouTube in time. And so a consequence of that is, I think unless I pay for like a Twitch Pro or something like that, I don't get an extended time for the videos. So they go away after 2 weeks. And it looks like Wednesday was the second week for that. So the second session, all of the other ones are still ready to go. And we have been reading the House of Light details pretty consistently through the episodes. In fact, I'll do that here just because I know there was a missed episode with that. But I do want to stress early beta. Weather Factory was kind enough to send along a key, and really they haven't been getting that much in terms of bug reports from me. I must apologize for that. But I also play the game rather slowly, so I haven't been running into as many bugs as some of the more enthusiastic players, I'm sure. And part of that is I do want to share those initial impressions with you, the audience. So unless I start adding a lot more streaming days, I don't quite have the same opportunity to sort of like really leap into some of the new content to test. But I have been juggling a few other things as far as the game goes, especially in terms of my own playthroughs. So let's take a minute here and load up the description. House of Light. In the House of Light. House of Light is a big expansion woven deep into the game. Here is a spoiler-light guide on how to find the new bits. Food. Combine ingredients at the 3 kitchen workstations to create dozens of new dishes. You'll need kitchenware items to find all the recipes. Tips. The spice scales and spices and savor skill will substitute for each other. A writing case. Once you've received this gift, you can record addresses from the calling cards left by satisfied visitors and write to these visitors to invite them back to the house. Tip. Visitors don't arrive instantly. Visitors don't leave calling cards until you've helped them, and some visitors are easier to summon than others. Salons. Place food and drink in one of the 6 salon rooms and then use the bell to begin a salon. Do it right and you will be rewarded with sparkling conversation and lessons. Tip. Visitors usually prefer food and drink that matches their primary interest, but some have additional requirements. Beta note there are about 400 interactions in here, but probably another 100 to go. In particular, the villagers don't yet have unique interactions. And it is actually maybe worth mentioning on this one here that there was a post from Weather Factory recently, some details on the Lucid Tarot. Now, I was rather sad to see that it looks like there was actually some production trouble with it, and it seems that they were actually out some money, so I was rather sad to read that, but I definitely know, if you have had the joy of following Weather Factory, you will know that one half, I think it would be an understatement to call her indefatigable, and that is certainly not to short the other half, who obviously is a tremendous talent. I think it's one thing. I don't want to spend too much time because I think most people who like this game are very fond of the developers behind it. But I do think that there is something really worth noting that, independent of the individual talent and how enjoyable these games are, I do read a lot of stuff about the games industry, and I particularly read a lot of the coverage about the independent games space. I will confess I am not a fan of a lot of it. I have my favorites, and I do my best to try and read even from sources that I find disagreeable. And I have not always had the best reaction to some of the stuff that I write or whenever I try to engage on this. But I think the one thing that is true for a lot of independent games is that everybody considers it incredibly hard to do, not just to launch something, but to try and succeed with it. And I think it's also very fair to say that if you take a look at sort of the history of the games, there's actually some talks that one of the co-founders of the studio, Alexis Kennedy's given for GDC on sort of their background games. It is not a string of constant successes. It's very easy to look at some games or some developers and see, hello, Vanguard Master. Completely understand. I hope you are doing well. I hope the whole is bigger but manageable. And I appreciate you hanging out. I probably, while I'm talking about the difficulty of making independent games, you don't require me to elucidate you, but I'm sure... Okay, fair enough. But I'm speaking to the non-practitioners, of which I would include myself. But in any case, I think, so one thing that's important to remember is that it isn't just a story of constant success. However, I think when you take a look at how unique these games are, something that actually can't, even though it's very easy, when I say very easy, even though it is relatively easy to make independent games today compared to a period when there weren't affordable tools. So even if you don't use an established game engine, just the existence of certain libraries for free really gives people a leg up that didn't exist previously. But undeniably original games. And on top of that, games that I think if you had looked at them prior to their release, I think probably a lot of very... I think people who would have studied the subject, or people who, quote unquote, know better, would not necessarily say that these things look like hits. And yet there is such a consistent track record, especially from Weather Factory, the micro studio, of producing really high quality and very successful games. And I don't know, I think there's always something interesting about that. I will also say, actually, both of them have been very kind about some of the games writing that I do, and I highlight that just because that is not a consistent reaction. So obviously people who are clearly far better writers than I'll ever be, and people who really do write, both of them write really interesting articles. It is sort of nice, people who probably have more of a right to say, you don't know what you're talking about and this isn't your beat, have been actually quite generous both with their time and their feedback. So it's one of those things that I've noticed. It's not always the case, but some of the people, this is true for Econ as well, some of the people who really are the absolute top of their field also turned out to be some of the nicest and most generous with their time. Apparently they weren't always like that. I got some feedback from somebody who was in a couple of years after me, and apparently my thesis advisor was actually quite vicious during a couple of seminars, but they were nice to me and I respect them a lot. But it was always sort of I don't want to say mediocrities, especially because at the school I was at, it did have a really, really strong department, but definitely people whose talent maybe didn't quite carry the same weight, and certainly whose reputation was not as not as heavy as some of the others, the kinder ones. I think that's true across a few other places, maybe some of the lesser talents. And it's always a grudging admission, but some of these people still are true talents, have been less kind. But the two, certainly some of the most admirable I've seen, at least in terms of game developers, have been very generous with their time and attention and continue to make very good games. So anyways, sorry. Big, long description, but this is why I tend to react a little bit whenever I see bad news inside of the blog, because these are the people who shouldn't be getting that bad news. But we do know that the writing half, Alexis, is on a writing break and adding these interactions. Manuscripts use paper, ink, and a skill to write a manuscript based on that skill. These manuscripts may be necessary to satisfy thirst for specific knowledge and further stories. Lessons from Salons will help you improve those skills and write more useful manuscripts. Tip: you can't reliably control what visitors will discuss. It's a party, not an interrogation, but they will usually provide lessons related to their shared interests. Further stories. Once you've completed an incident, follow it up in the Tree of Wisdoms. Visitors will need more specific help here, perhaps a book on a specific topic or a specific book. Note, further stories for the Invisible Opera and the Dappled Rose are not yet available in beta. Tip: an affair opens to further stories once all interested visitors have had the opportunity to ask you for help with it. Be aware in some further stories it can make a difference who you originally helped. Be careful, this is one part of the game where choices can sometimes have permanent consequences. And finally, the Institute. Look for the lighthouse out at sea. When your visitors are ready, use it to establish the true heirs to the Curia of the Isle. Note, only a very limited and incomplete preview for the Institute functionality is available in beta. Tip: further stories outcomes can inspire your visitors to support the Institute for their own reasons. Their nature is constant, but some story outcomes can make them decide to emphasize one agenda over another. And because the first episode was missing this, authors: Weather Factory is design, writing, and coding Alexis Kennedy, art, production, and marketing Lottie Bevan. Salute the collaborators, and again, I will unfortunately not be able to share the localization, but we have additional coding Roman Loskudov, Knights of Unity, and FRGM, additional art Adrian Negan, Clockwork Cuckoo, and Catherine Unger, music by Maribeth Sullivan, Brent Barkman, for Mickey Moore Productions Limited, RIP Mickey Erb, SFX by Soundcuts. Big thank yous to the localization, Chinese localization, Dove Archive, I keep doing this. Russian localization, I believe, is new. Steam page localization. I do see a few familiar names, by the way. And special thanks all our testers, Riley Lebrac for Steamworks.net. Again, I still want to know what Fingal's Coffee on Trafalgar Road is. Johnny Cockland, Mark Lewis, Alex Tuddy, Anna Poulter Jones, PK and Sonia, Matt and Taz, Sulo and She, who are also I don't recall what their official title is, but they're on the payroll. All right. All that introduction out of the way, let's do some more House of Light. Okay, we are doing our laundry. Hang on. It should be dawn. All right. Oh, that's right. Okay, so we've got a gale, which means I'm going to try and figure out what to do with the day. I think some of that actually depends a bit on the... Well, I think we already said we were going to bring in Mr. Kill, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay, so for Mr. Kill, he starts with the 1 sky. We take care of the gale, which will bring him up to 4. We don't have a Faust yet, but I can give him the Astrolabe and then the T. Did I start to serve? Yes, I am serving the T. Okay, so Mr. Kill is taken care of. I think I'm going to try and use one of the Orchard Keepers to... Right, I already have the pairs. Okay, so here's how I'm going to do this. I'm not going to start with the pears. I'm actually going to start drying up water, but that's because I can pour the water. I actually thought I drew up a pitcher of water already. Apparently I didn't. Which is fine. I mean, it's not a big deal for me to restore it, but let's do that. Drop water, lower the bucket creaking into the dark. I'm going to want to restore the that health pretty quickly as well, just because if we do bring in the Orchard Keeper, we're going to we are going to need to boost the nectar. The Key of Night, this is a tricky one. So with Horns and Ivories, So Horns and Ivories and Earth Sign will get me 4. So we really need to wait for the health for that. So I think we're going to say we'll skip books for today because we have an opportunity for a couple of rooms. I will use my Tryst to get the Earth Sign back at least. I'd still like to go to the beach as well. So maybe we can use the Fett for that. Okay, yeah, I have the rest of the day worked out. So Tryst with the Wrapped in the King. I have already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. So this is so that I can get the Earth Sign. And then the main focus of today is actually going to be on Mr. Kill, although again, we'll still bring in the Orchard Keeper to see how... I feel like Oriflamme's is coming earlier in the year. Okay, poured out. So yeah, we only have a cup here. So I should probably buy some more of the... Should probably buy more of that tea. We'll see how things go. I don't need to work with this right away. So I'm gonna wait on Mr. Kill. There we go. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. Coffin Maker's assistant, a tamer of trees, a worker of woods, a consigner of cadavers. He has also been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry. So, let's take a moment here. We'll talk with him about the gale. Talk about the weather, more useful than one might expect, especially in Britain. And here we're still waiting for the... recovery at the Sweet Bones. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So I don't think we're going to use the fear today. Might be helpful for the scale text when it comes to it, but I just think we have other things to do right now. Fresh, clean, dry. So, sorry, just got a message from a potential viewer. Okay, sorry, I actually had a question which asked what my longest stream was. I believe the 24-hour one is the longest I've ever gone, but that was kind of an exception. That was also before I was like a regular streamer, so. Help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Actually, I will take a second just to confirm something for me. So, it is Nectar and Heart. Now again, we're not worried about the heart here because we can get Mr. Kill to take sorry, I keep getting distracted. I can offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug. Not everyone here knows their letters. We're going to take care of Mr. Kill first before I hire the Orchard Keeper, but I do think we can probably make things work with the Orchard Keeper, and I would like to get to the wrecked pantry just because that'll give me a few more materials for cooking. And I'll assume that elements of the soul are required for cooking. Let's take advantage of the weather while it lasts. Alright, so, Baron silences astrolabe. Thomas de Wolf used this armillary, a spherical astrolabe, in his calculations, but it's much older than he was. I can lend my assistants something to help increasing their abilities. And again, we're going to give them the... Actually, one thing I can do, let's take the Cater and Hero. Scratch tiny symbols on the flimsy form. I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add... 2 of... I think I'm going to add 2 of each and see if we can maybe just work our way up to the money for it. Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of the secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries of the cults of Isis and Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. In the tracks of beast and the convolutions of his own carapace, in Egg-vein and Shell Shadow, the many-eyed one found the signs which can be history. An earth sign is an auspice traced on the cloaked shape of the earth, perceptible to the sensitive, interpreted only by the wise. So it'd be nice to use my Fet for something, but in this case, actually, you know, the temptation is to go beachcombing, and I think I will. So we can use... I thought we had sea stories, yeah. What is the sea seeded today? So we're going to take a little while to get the order form dealt with, but I don't mind getting this out of the way. It's also a bit ridiculous. Maybe I won't do the Evening Isles coffee quite yet. So 2 sugar. Actually, I might already have the sugar down. 2 ham, 1 sugar, 1 lapsang tea. Okay. This tool has boosted their aspects appropriately. So finally give him the Veiled Goddess Lapsang Souchong cup of it. Named for an enigmatic minor deity whose charge is the healing of burns. A nice drop. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. Alright, so we've added sugar, ham, flour next. Oh, sorry, butter next. I should have taken a look at what the offer was here. So this is for the Ascendant. The edgelong Dardash boasts of her victories over her brother enemy Tareg in the days of the Shadowless Empire. Interesting book. Also gives us Edict's Marshal, so it's a bit of a shame that I'm not able to get it, but it is a 4 tally price. It's also in Hyksos, which we don't know, so I'll have to live with disappointment. Dripping. Huh. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's definitely one to make a note of for bugs. I have no idea how to recreate that, but I also want to know. I don't think dripping... Oh, no, there it is. Does it say what... Okay, canned ham, sugar. I don't actually remember ordering dripping, but I'll accept that maybe that was a misclick. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. A little water splashes onto the stones at the well to nourish the mosses there. So it's close enough that I think we can recover the health through a glass of water today. So pour out. Poured out. So this is to restore the health, probably for the gardener. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. Okay. 2 butter. Scratch tiny symbols on the flimsy form. Okay, 2 butter, 2 sugar, onto potatoes. Again, really interesting to see the refill having this effect. I don't normally do the butter dripping sugar canned ham. Didn't I order potatoes? I don't normally use the refill, so this could have actually been something that's been a problem for a longer period of time, but I'm gonna make a note of that when I can. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. Okay. Oh, wait, here's the potatoes, so. Okay. Milk, flour, and 1 more dripping. I think I need to be a little more careful in terms of the order in which I'm clicking these. Okay. Got the flour right, yeah, so 1 more dripping and that's it. And we'll send this off. I don't think we'll get it until the next season, but provide money equal to the cost. The postmistress will make out a postal order. Complete the order. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So again, we're going to keep talking with Mr. Kill until we have sort of the next steps. Postmistress signs and seals the order and places it in the place that stamped orders are normally placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. Okay, so it's probably not the full season then. And I am a little tempted to try and take a bite or two. I know I just kind of got started, but my dinner's just kind of sitting at me, staring at me. Better now. All right. If I'm gonna add the gardener, I think this is now's the time to do it. So, let's think about the Sorry, I'm just going to get my tablet here. So I don't make sure I have enough time. I think I do, but it would be good to... good to do more than hope, especially because I did just spend a bunch of my money on goodies. So, if we take... sorry. Technical problems. Okay, there we go. So if we take... It's not gardener, it's orchard keeper. So that's 2 nectar. So then we use the earth sign. So that's 2, which brings us up to 4, and then we can use the tool. So we have the cake bowls, or we have the mortar and pestle. So that's good for 1, which brings them up to 5. So from there we can use the dandelion wine. That's good for 2, and that brings them up to 7. The other option that we have is to feed them the pears. But that's that only requires... Oh, sorry, that only gives 1. So, okay, so with that in mind, we've got, I think it's 30 seconds for each step. So 2, 4, we need 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we're good. So I'll start by pouring out some of the dandelion wine. Actually, slightly different order here. Pour out. Serve appropriately. Pour out. Sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. So we'll go back to working at the sweet bones right away. Poured out. Oh, actually, if I want, I don't need to give up the dandelion wine. Instead, I could use the health and the tool. Although with the health, how about we get some more pears instead? Okay, in autumn, the orchard keepers come to sell their wares at Brandkrug. A shilling will buy one's health. So we will work with them in a minute. Help with letters, I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Okay, dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So we're good to get Mr. Kill to open up the 3rd floor of the Motley Tower. The theoplasmic miasma that hung around the room below is a little stronger here and a little different, with a rotten, musky scent that perhaps suggests a decaying reptile house. Perhaps something layered here after the inhabitants departed. Perhaps the inhabitants dreamed unwisely. In any case, the right counter-influences will dispel it. So we'll get Mr. Kill to unlock that. Now just bear with me a second here. Ordering all the food made me a little hungry. All right. So let's talk with the orchard keeper. Earth sign first. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. So again, we're a little close to the timer. This is why I would want to use the dandelion wine first. I deserved a little quiet time. So this will be surplus pairs, but I still think it's worth it to pick these up. Herbs and infusions, fragrant pears, soft in the hand. Oriflammes thanks you for your continued interest. Memories don't last long outside the books, but it's made a difference for the day. So we will now use the cake bowls. Cake time! I can lend my assistant something to help increasing their abilities. You'll still be able to use the tool, and again we've got the dandelion wine with 2 nectar to open the next room. So I'm most tempted to open up the wrecked pantry. I think it's going to be wrecked pantry, overgrown kitchen garden, and then the rose haunted hall, and we should have enough time to handle all of these. And I think we should be able to do one more cycle with the whisk. Normally here I would use the whisk to do something like open up the package, but in this case I do want to make up some of that money that I spent on goodies. So it is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. This tool has boosted their aspects appropriately. A nice drop. I can offer my assistant something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. And up here we have the Regensburg room. The physician Natan lived here in the 15th century, and his family after that, tolerated by the monks, until King Henry dissolved the foundation and granted the isle to Hendrik. Hendrik turfed them out of the tower and furnished the place more to his own taste, but when Christopher Elopoli moved in 400 years later, he restored what he could. Elopoli wrote at the time of his sympathy as a rootless foundling for the outcast Natan. I don't know what I am, but I don't think I'm English. So there's a few items inside here. We've got 3 baronial period books. We've got our benefactress, evidently someone who donated to the Curia but preferred to remain anonymous. Also our benefactor. We have a reference image. There is no kind of reference for conventional medicine. A quire of paper, no ink, incidentally. This might be the first room that I've seen, actually, where you have paper but no ink. Regensburg menorah, a relic of the physician Natan of Regensburg, a storm-tossed mirror, solid workmanship, but not obviously remarkable. We have got the motley bed. An exile slept here long ago. This is a moth bed. It does have the weighty bedside candle holder to comfort you through the dark hours. We have a wine-dark chair, an elegant 18th century piece imported from France. We have the bag of tricks. Useful, a treacherously subjective term. Does this contain anything useful? And finally, Natan's desk. It's an apothecary's desk, all right, but dates from at least 100 years after Natan of Regensburg came here. Of course, his son, his grandson, and his great-grandson were all Natans too. So we'll catalog those books when we can, but we have a few other priorities to deal with today. Chief among them being opening up the wrecked pantry. So we should still have enough time to make some money at the Sweet Bones. And then, as the form said, it'll be a couple of days before our order comes in. But I'm happy enough to wait on the cooking. Down to the Grussians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. So I think we can work right away on the wrecked pantry. I'm probably going to want to keep the fear. So, smashed glass and shattered timber. This room can be restored, and there'll be salvageable provisions tucked away in the wreckage, but I'll need someone with strong arms and a patient heart. unlock. So I'll take a minute here and make a couple of notes on what else I can do with the Orchard Keeper. So, heart, or health. So that's one that brings it up to 8, and pears brings that up to 9. Yeah, so it's all hands on deck tomorrow with the Orchard Keeper, but we probably aren't going to get a gale, so that's manageable. Better now. All right. So committing to the sweet bone, working in the sweet bones. I'm kind of curious what this will all collapse into once I hit the collect button, but I'll wait for the shift to finish. Dusk. Night has fallen. Dawn will come soon. So we're going to dream on the fear because I'm going to want that for the desk. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. And here we are, the pantry. This room is close to the roots of the house, so it had a troubled reputation with the servantry, who, late at night, might hear the pulse of an unseen drum, the buzzing of flies, voices crying out in tongues unknown, and so the servants would trade favors not to be the one to fetch spices for his lordship's posset after dark. There's a few items in here. So we've got rose pearl. Now this still is a material and a gem, so not necessarily something you'd keep in a kitchen. Let's put that... actually, I'll put it in the dispensary. I want to impose a little more order here. Phosphorescent scrapings doesn't seem like the sort of thing that you keep in the in this room either. So there we go. We're starting to make some progress. Actually, so you know what? This can be. We'll move the wines over here. All right. Now I've got some packages to open. So this is elderflower cordial, wrung from sweet white flowers, rosehip jam, plucked from wild roses, and blackberry jam, plucked from hedgerows. So I think we can put the blackberry jam alongside these. Eigengrau, if Grey Dawn oil were drinkable. Can probably move the Eigengrau from the other areas as well. Alright, so we'll put the Dawn Lion coffee. Actually, you should put this on one of the narrower shelves. So Dawn Lion coffee. Evening Isles coffee. Gideon's soaks aren't really appropriate for a kitchen, so we'll move those. Up here. A therapeutic collection of beneficial bottles. Drinking cocoa, I guess we can put over here. We can put the cuckoo honey up on the top shelf. Okay, pickled pilchards, an acquired and unforgettable taste. Don't think I can fit the teas, although this is the Veiled Goddess Lapsang Souchong, so I'll actually bring that into... I'll put that in the library right now, but I'll actually brew that before too long. Mackerel, eat it while it's fresh or keep it while it's salted. Cinnabar, a bright scarlet powder with a silvery brilliance locked within, so that'll go on the shelf. Pale marrow. In Brandkrug, they take their marrows seriously. This is a marrow redolent of sorrow. Golden marrow. In Brandkrug, they take their marrow seriously. This is accounted a beauty among its kind. And dark marrow. In Brandkrug, they take their marrow seriously. This is a marrow with secrets. Okay. This does not belong in the kitchen. Essential Periost, what happens when you boil and scrape us down to our utter fundamentals. And I'll move the serpentinite slab, the gray-green root rock of the Cornish coast. This is material in stone, so a little more appropriate in the forge. I'm going to move the packages to one shelf. Basket of vegetables, gifts from the garden. I wonder if I can consider that. Yes, I can. So we can get a specific vegetable out of that if we need. Beeswax, it begins as a flower. So we will put that up here. Oh, didn't like that. I want to just take a second here and make sure that none of these are ingredients. The viper egg is, so we'll move that down. Of course, we may want to hatch this one. Slow gin bottle, homemade berry gin. I think what I can do here Scrumpy, the West Country's most unregenerate achievement, perhaps at its best when pressed from stolen apples. Alright, that's enough organization, I think. Now we've got the Maze Crazed room. That's an 8 heart or 8 rows. Now I'd be interested in the rows just because I've got the fet, but we'll see what we can do with that. Hey, McCasey, makes me think of the Team Fortress demo. There's a Team Fortress demo? Anyways, good to see you. We are getting close to cake time. So we're still going to take care of the plan that we talked about. So we'll open up the overgrown kitchen garden first, then the Rose Haunted Hall, and then we'll make an effort to see if we can go any further on these. But right now we're working on anything with nectar just because that's what the Orchard Keeper gives us. Cucurbit Bridge, Hush House has been many things over the centuries, including the nocturnal period of 1896 to 1929 a jail. No one remembers that period fondly, but at least it meant Nocturnal Branch paid for a new bridge. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Okay. Lots of packages to open, and then of course the bag of tricks in Natan's room, but we don't need to do it all in one day. Daybreak, memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. So, here's what I'm going to do. We'll start by hiring the Orchard Keeper right away. In autumn, the Orchard Keepers come to sell their wares at Brandkrug. A shilling will buy one's help. Orchard Keepers offer nectar and a little heart, alternatively add a soul card to find rarer guests who might be seeking employment. We might do that with a rarer guest, but right now our goal is to open up these other rooms promptly. Alright. In autumn, the Orchard Keepers come to sell their wares in Brandkrug. A shilling will buy one's help. In Cornwall, it is quite possible to take a stride from the richest vegetation into the abomination of desolation. It has been said in mockery that Cornwall does not grow wood enough to make coffins for the people. Sabine Baring Gould. All right, so we're going to use the whist to make some money in the Sweet Bones. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. We're going to talk with the Orchard Keeper about my health right away because we do need that +1 nectar, and then we're actually going to use the glass of water to... we're going to use the glass of water to get my... oh, another Gale! So that is meaningful. Let me take a second here and see if I can do anything exceptional with Mr. Kill. Okay, so Mr. Kill gives us 1. Gale gives us 3, so that brings it up to 4. Astrolabe brings us 5. Tea, which I can brew, brings us up to 6. Now, as far as I can tell, we don't have any sky for the other items. Yeah, so that would leave us 2 short. So naturally, it does invite a question, well, is there something we can do with the heart? We do have the Darkened Church, so actually let's take a second to evaluate that. So we'd use the Orchard Keeper in this case because we can't hire Mrs. Kill yet. So Gale for 3. That brings us up to 4. So Bowls brings us up to 5. So if we can find 1 heart, which I think actually would come from the Witching Tisane if I'm not mistaken, we would... Yep. Okay. Alternatively, I could use the current Orchard Keeper, but we're really committed to the current path, so I will hire a second one when the time comes. But I've got a pretty good idea of how we're going to spend the day. So again, unexpected for 2 days, but being able to open up the church is a nice touch. I really thought I was going to be using Reverend Timothy for that. Okay, let's move forward. Poured out. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. Now, I should have started this already. I do need to read Wrapped in the King for the memory. I won't reread the text again, otherwise, you know, everybody will have that one burned into memory. We are already making money. Yeah, we are making money at the Sweet Bones. So, am I tempted to do the cataloging? Absolutely. Do I do it now is the question. I guess I don't really need the elements of the soul for anything else, so in this case, yes. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's baronial period, roughly the 1500s to 1700s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. And likewise with the Fete, we'll use that. We could use this at the Vagabond's desk, or sorry, at Natan's desk, but we'll use the Vagabond's book desk in this case. So we'll have one more book that we need to catalog tomorrow. But again, we don't need to rush all this stuff. We're already ahead as far as the hirelings and the rooms are concerned. So I'm pretty happy about that. I did not restore an element of the soul yet, though. I'm ready to lend my limbs. We'll work alongside each other. I think what I'm going to do in this case is... Now, the 30 seconds actually doesn't make that big of a difference. So I thought I was going to pay to bring back the health, but the timing doesn't quite work. So here we'll just take care of the rest. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. Wainscot Histories. subtitled Stories from Behind Walls, a miscellany of non-traditional histories, including battles not generally acknowledged in countries which appear on no map, told in a playful, apparently fictional manner. I believe this is Auroral Contemplations, so in this case we'll put that in the duplicate pile. Now, we have not eliminated some options in terms of the different paths. So for instance, Auroral Contemplations would be an Illumination, or a Nyctodromy, and both Illumination and Nyctodromy are ones that I'm not going to have a level 1 for right away. And I do believe Auroral Contemplations is something that I have used profitably in the past, but I also don't need to read it right now. Like, there isn't something that there isn't an immediate need to have that added to the list. So in this case, I'm going to say, okay, good to know that I have this option, but it's not something that I need to work with right away. Black Nephrite gives us wolf stories, so that's a 6 moon. Theoretically, we can handle that, but the moon is going to be a little hard to come by. So if I've got 3 moon that comes from... Okay, so we add Sea Stories plus a Tryst, that's 3. We add Intuition, let's say, which would bring us up to 5. Then we add the Globe, so yes, we're good there. That gives us Wolf Stories, which we don't yet have, so that's going on the to-read pile. Locus 101 says, "You're here, how's it going? I am doing well, how are you tonight?" Alright, on to Mrs. Killing, or sorry, the Orchard Keeper again. So I should just make sure I'm staying on top of this. So we've got, I guess the tool next. Yeah, it doesn't really matter the order, but I am still going to need to wait for the Earth Sign. I can lend my assistant something to help increasing their abilities. Losing your mind slowly as always. That's more of a cultist simulator thing, but I think we can all go mad here. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. All right, so I think we'll just do the usual cycle on this. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. I didn't need to... actually didn't need to use the... Well, I can still switch it out. This tool has boosted their aspects appropriately, and our Earth Sign, so we're going to use that with the Orchard Keeper right away. So they're up to 6. So it'll be dandelion, wine, and then pears. And then once we get the health back, we'll use that with... Oh, you know what? I didn't get myself a pitcher of water. I did. That was very exciting to see. It didn't necessarily strike me as a game that immediately recommended itself for consoles, but they seem to be really good at picking partners to realize the games with. So I'm definitely interested in seeing how it works. I'd actually also be interested to see whether or not they wind up with one of those deals. I know it's a little bit harder to come by a deal with like the Game Pass, for instance, but oh, they did a Switch port. I had no idea. I should have, I guess, but I always just assumed that kind of mobile was mobile, but yeah, no, they're obvious. I mean, I was talking about this in the introduction. They're very clearly a developer that knows what they are doing. So I just kind of sit back and be amazed, usually. I can offer my assistant something to eat. This will increase their aspects. It's also just friendly. Okay, better now. I could offer help with correspondence with offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. And I deserved a little quiet time. So normally we'd be using this to either get pears or more water or something like that. But I do have an opportunity to study Key of Night, and I'm going to take it. So we add the serpent-styled glass. I can master this mystery. Enough scale to match mystery scale. The switch port for sure seemed to be an odd choice for a first port, but it seems like they were treating it as a stress test on how optimized you can make it, which means that it shouldn't stress even an old PS4 like mine. Well, actually, the one that I would be a little more worried about would be Book of Hours, and I believe they've said that they plan to take it to mobile. I was a little surprised by that, but I do also know that one of the things they've been working on a lot has been optimizing it for lower spec PCs. And I think it just kind of comes down, right, when somebody sees an art style like this, they're like, what do you mean I need a more powerful, computer? But I also don't think a lot of games take this perspective. Oh, what's this? You don't have a lighthouse in your game? Must mean that you haven't wishlisted House of Light yet. Although this doesn't show up until you actually get House of Light, just to be clear. But yeah, so I mean, I think probably what people don't appreciate is that this is not easy to do, right? This does actually require some effort. At least, a two-person team doing this. I understand that if you're like Sledgehammer Games or Raven or something like that, you have an entire team whose entire existence is finding out how to pull out more performance from existing hardware, particularly consoles. But yeah, a two-person team being able to do this in the first place, I think, is actually quite impressive. But number two, it does make for a weird set of priorities in terms of balancing, wanting to maximize the number of people who can play and buy the game, but also making sure that the time is not spent entirely on serving that. Like, in the end, we do want the experience, and we do want the DLC that we were sort of promised as part of the Perpetual Edition and such. So, sorry, just 1 second. I'm going to have a sip. So, that's why I was a little surprised when they said that they were porting it. But I mean, on the other hand, right, like, it's a game that has demonstrated its viability, and I'd love to be able to play this on mobile. Like, one of the things I will say, playing games like this on a laptop or on a tablet in the case of Cultist Simulator has always been a conversation starter, and people have definitely gotten into these games because I get to, I get that there's a delay in terms of the, I get that there's a bit of a delay in terms of the chat. Also, hello, ever-waiting sleeper. Sorry, I'm getting really distracted. Mostly just because I'm still kind of wanting to have dinner. I might actually take a break. I don't know if I'll be able to hold out until the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, again, they know what they're doing. The game's sort of demonstrated its viability on PC, and so, I love the opportunity to be able to talk about this game a little bit more as far as a conversation piece is concerned. So, all right, so I think we're one glass of wine away from opening up the garden. I think we have a reasonable shot at being able to... Let me just double check here. So if we take the... yeah, the Gale, the Kitchen Bowls, and the Tisane does not require the heart. Yeah, Everwaiting Sleep. And I think they're pretty clear it's not going to be a Secret Histories game, which in one sense is a shame because there's obviously so much more in this world that can be explored. But I also think, based on their interests that I know and some of the hints that they have given, I definitely think that this is going to be... I definitely am interested in seeing where they go with it. Especially because I believe one of their stated interests that is connected to what they've said about the next game, that was one that sort of created a very big seller. I don't believe it is a bigger seller than Book of Hours, but it's still a very, very, very successful game that was drawn from that same inspiration that they've sort of said. So, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a tricky one, especially because I get the impression that they're also sort of trying to weigh where their like time goes. Because if you're doing a port and you're doing a DLC, and there's also some work on sort of early prototypes going, you know, that's a lot to ask for a team of 2 people. So, again, tremendous respect for it. And I'm glad they seem to really be living their best lives. But that is a lot of work to put on a team. So. So after this round at the Sweet Bones, I'm going to hire another Orchard Keeper. We'll make sure that we have enough time, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. And we'll catalog one more book tomorrow, but that will be after we've taken care of the rooms and such. All right, down to the Grushans. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. So this is a point where we'll just send them straight into the room. Overgrown kitchen garden. This place has been surrendered to wind and weed. Bees buzz menacingly. Somewhere, something clucks plaintively. So it's going to be a tight window. We need memory, bowls, and the Tisane. The good news is we don't need to generate any of these things. So as long as we have 90 seconds, we are good. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So first things first, we'll hire the Orchard Keeper. In autumn, the Orchard Keepers come to sell their wares at Brandkrug. A shilling will buy one's help. And I will restore the Whist, even if I don't use it at the Sweet Bones for money. I can catalog a book with it, and that just puts us ahead in terms of opening up the different containers. So tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. All right, let's have a chat about that gale. More useful, talk about the weather, more useful than one might expect, especially in Britain. Let's take advantage of the weather while it lasts. Alright, so we'll use the cake bowls again. Proffer a tool. I can lend my assistant something to help, increasing their abilities. We're also just verifying here, so this is 5 heart that we're getting, which means that we need the Witching Tisane to bring us over the edge. Here we go. The kitchen garden. In 1652, Musgrave de Wolf caught a traveling peddler stealing vegetables from his garden, an eccentric wanderer who went by Ricardo Milagro. Musgrave's ancestors would simply have hung the fellow, but Musgrave decreed 7 years' service in the garden instead. When the 7 years were up, Milagro had proved his worth as a gardener and chose to make Brandkrug his home. The grapevines here are cultivated with rootstock he carried in his pack. And we have a few different items. So first of all, a beehive. Bees, like librarians, are not to be trifled with. We have the garden, nourishing vegetables in summer and autumn. The gentle climate of Cornwall supports grapevines, harvest in spring and summer. And two very important individuals. Terence the Chicken. Was this magnificent and indomitable beast named for the rector's indomitable and magnificent housekeeper? Best not to inquire too closely. And Tuppence. Tuppence the other chicken. Tuppence's most notable quality, all observers will agree, is that she is not Terence. And Lucas here says, we love cataloging books, but not reading them yet. You have 8 books that you need to read, but you've skimmed. In real life or inside of Book of Hours? It's hard to tell sometimes. Kind of typical and slightly annoying question, but what do you think my favorite bit of House of Light is so far? I don't think that's an unreasonable question to ask, Locus, but the fact of the matter is that this is the guide at the start does actually sort of say that it's deeply embedded in the game. And my experience is, and I don't think this is just limited to the fact that I play this game quite slowly, but it does take me a while to get to some of the new things. So the very first thing that I got out of this was the writing case from Serena Blackwood. And now this gives me the option of bringing people back to Brandkrug, but that's only if I get sort of the sufficient ingredients, which admittedly is not that hard. So Serena is 3 Forge, Stanislav Schaller's 3 Nectar, Agdistis 3 Sky, 3 Lantern from Douglas Moore, and Eason Fekri is 3 Heart. And then I think Connie Lee is actually 3 Moon, and Fraser Strathcoyne is 5 Scale. So Strathcoyne's a little bit more difficult to reach out to, but not impossible. So there's a couple of practical elements. So I like the idea of being able to invite people back to Brandkrug because I sort of think that you may be able to get tutoring from them. I am excited by the idea of the different interactions with the guests at the parties. So I'm sort of interested in that. But by far personally, even though I haven't run into it, and so far as I can tell, this is actually being written, but it's actually the Lighthouse Institute itself. This is something that was hinted at in the live event, which is run by Tricuspid Limited, called The Locksmith's Dream. I believe actually they've announced that for this year, I think there's a September session. But in any case, I think there's only 2 spots left. So for those of you that were planning, your options are either the sort of the firm date that is currently on their website, and then if you want to attend the following year, I believe that is a deposit situation. So essentially, they get deposits to sort of ensure that they can book the venue, and then I think they they give people a few options in terms of dates and make it work that way. But in any case, the Lighthouse Institute is definitely one that I've been interested in. And the description here, even though there's quite a bit that's been worked on, that's being worked on right now, I think there's actually some hints in terms of where this gets really interesting. So behind the scenes, the Curia of the Isle is long gone. Once it helped preserve a little knowledge and a kind of safety here in Brandkrug and established the position of librarian. Rowena, secretary persistent of the Curia, a complex entity who has long protected Hush House, is both exhausted and compromised, and so it is time for the librarian to return the favor and establish a successor to the Curia. Help visitors pursue their goals and develop their agendas. When you have found 6 suitable candidates and inspired by agendas, you can suggest they found an organization that is a worthy successor to the Curia of the Isle. So the idea of kind of continuing the story of Brandkrug, not just your individual story as a librarian, but creating something that would be considered another era for the house, I think is kind of interesting. You have a few options. So treasurer would be responsible for the Institute's finances. This would be a good excuse to ask for an initial endowment, so they should be wealthy. Your options there are Strathcoyne, Kokil Emergibi, or Daymare. Secretary Salvant would lead the Institute's healing and restoration efforts. So the options here, Peter Agdistis, Eason Fekri, or Father Stanislav John Schaller. Secretary Vigilant. The Secretary Vigilant would ensure the Institute's safety. Lali Kamia. I think it's, is it Azita Bakara? Yeah. And Lieutenant Arthur Thomas Moore, retired. Secretary Enigmatic would conceal or reveal the Institute's secrets. Serena Blackwood, Senior Corso Reverte, or Dr. Yvette Southey. Secretary Nunciate would communicate and negotiate with other organizations. Olympie Bichet, Ibn Aladim, or Zachary Wakefield. And then the record here. So there is the idea. So I was not that bothered by the fact that you would get news of the outer world, but you wouldn't necessarily know the long-term effects. Sorry, just real quick, double checking. That required aspect is idealist. Yet I don't know. That is the same as. Are you talking about Zachary Wakefield? Because I don't believe that any of the traits of of like people like Connie Lee or Zachary Wakefield, I don't believe any of those cross over into Book of Hours. Yes, the knitting reference, the required aspect above the people. Yes, inspired. So this is specifically somebody that I'm getting to this in a minute. This is not idealist, but this is a trait that you need to have. But I'll explain this in a minute here. So, I wasn't that bothered by the fact that you would have guests who visit, and that the story would sort of end. And this is just because, again, you are sort of isolated in Hush House. You're rebuilding it, and you're this would also be new for House of Light, so I don't think Inspired exists in Book of Hours as it is right now. But basically, the way that this works is that now that we have completed one of the stories, you now have these nice little constellations on the Tree of Wisdoms. So we did The God in the Wood. Has anything more happened at the health camp in the Black Forest that called itself Lytirian? So we can talk with Agdistis, Douglas, Eason, or Stanislav. So we can even give an example here, right? So speak to Douglas about his investigation of Lytirian, add the visitor. Same with Eason Fekri or Peter Agdistis. So this gives us a reason to invite them back, not just for the Salam, but for the the continuation of that story. And by sort of giving the epilogue to the story, by inspiring them, just pushing them towards a certain end or a certain conclusion, this will actually wind up shaping the types of agendas that they support in the Lighthouse Institute. The form that the Lighthouse Institute takes will actually it will be shaped by some of the choices and some of the ways you help these figures that you ultimately invite to be part of the organization. So again, I didn't necessarily feel it was a shortcoming that the story sort of ended, because I thought that was sort of in line with what the original game was. But the fact that you are sort of building something and building sort of a new era of Hush House is quite exciting to me, and I like this idea of being able to shape something greater. All right, let's move on to so that's the one. And I mean, again, like, there is something kind of neat about being able to prepare something for all of the guests. Like, I do like the idea that there is a bit more for me to do in the sort of the in-between places. But I tend to just really like big ideas in games. So I was a little sad that when I made the new computer, I sort of did a reformat of everything. There's two things that I really felt disappointed by losing. One was I actually had the original prototype for... Oh, hell. So the funny thing is I turned on streamer mode for Disco Elysium when I did it, and it's still giving me copyright complaints. Silly. Sorry, just YouTube gave me an alert. Okay, what was I saying? Yeah, so one was the first Unity prototype of Cultist Simulator, and I that was a bit of a shame because so far as I can tell, Weather Factory still doesn't retain a copy of that. So there's the original prototype, which was in JavaScript, is still playable, but the Unity one was quite different. There's some YouTube videos of me playing it, but that's not quite the same. I was going to wait for an anniversary to play it, and again, I just, new computer upgraded so I could have new version of Windows and such, and sadly, I lost it. I just wasn't thinking in terms of being able to download it again. And then the other thing that I sort of missed was I had, over a series of Stellaris playthroughs, a number of different species that I created. And while there are some people I know, and I think they might even have, first of all, I know they're better writers than me, but I also just think they have a more fulfilling experience. They tend to really like creating individual characters, right? So they might go into a lot of detail for an individual ruler. But for me, whenever I would create a species in Stellaris, there would always be an idea. And so over the course of playing the Stellaris DLC back when I was doing Paradox stuff, every new DLC would mean that there was some time to build this new species and kind of create a story. And I think, I don't mean to oversell, but I really got the impression people really liked the stories that were coming out of it. I think people were talking about... people were kind of saying, it's like, I'd read a story about any single one of these. And I really liked the idea that I was slowly populating my game with all of these different species that, in theory could appear in the game and potentially as rivals, potentially as allies. But yeah, anyways, they don't go to the cloud. So it turns out that I lost all of them. But it is what it is. Key of Night, the deliberations leading to a manifesto of the Worms of Escale, as recorded around 1900 in the bar Vienna in the cellar of the Hotel Ciervo in Noon. The Worms, all of whom use grandiose nom de guerre like Citizen Knife and Midnight Pilgrim, agree that all previous iterations of their movement have been feckless and treacherous, and agree that the return of the pre-human hours, the gods from stone, is the true way to end the tyranny of eternity. The Worms identify the Wheel, the Tide, the Flint, Sulochana, the Spider Door, the Excellency Nathobasis, and Wickel Indistinguishable as the 7 necessary pentiments that must be returned to every history through the propaganda of the deed. This is an eccentric list and clearly a compromise. The process of thrashing it out clearly exhausts all participants who don't specify the necessary deed beyond a vague reference to the loopholes. So we got fear for that. And pentiments and precursors, which again, oh crap, what on earth was I thinking? Oh right, actually I think I remember now, because Skolokosophy and Birdsong were both going to be level 2 anyway. So a little silly on my part, but we can manage this. I want to maybe be a little more careful in future though. So I don't really have any elements of the soul to use to level this up. I'm actually going to have to use up my health for that, I think. Better now. I think I did say I was going to catalog a book with this, so... Catalog a baronial period book, and this tool has boosted their aspects appropriately, so finally we give the witching to Sane before the end of the night, and we get to open a new room. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. So an 8 Killisimi text. I think I broke these down to specific languages that I couldn't read. Nope. Just one big incomprehensible shelf. I think I could at least try to organize based on language. There we go. It's a little more defensible. Down to the Grecians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. All right, we've got our 6, so I think we'll get a couple of books by opening up the Darkened Church. I've noticed that a couple of the layouts are a little different since the first time that I played this. So this has long been a holy place, but shadows are the only worshippers here now. The windows have been painted black, the pews overturned, the organ hung with black ribbons. And actually, Locus, I still don't have bookshelves in my apartment, so you're still ahead of me. And I think it's almost 90 minutes since I started, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break. It might be a slightly longer one, not just because I'm going to be refilling the kettle for some more tea, but I'm actually also going to I'm going to finish my dinner. I haven't really eaten that much of it, and it's just because I do actually want to make some progress to I did want to make some progress towards these different rooms. This is so I can have all of the cooking material, whereas this was so that I can kind of get a source of vegetables that isn't from Cater and Hero. Now, there's still some things for me to take care of, right? There's the we've got we'll have some more books to catalog. There's also some books that I actually want to read, there's the packages to open, so there's no shortage of things to kind of get in the way of preparing some food, but I at least have the option, and we can start working towards some things that maybe I'll want to serve at one of the salons. So, well, I'm drinking mint tea, so... Alright, the nave of the Abbey Church. For 1,000 years, the unconquered sun has been worshipped here in all his aspects, though since the heresies of the intercalate, many of those aspects are considered distinct hours in their own right, and the sun's death and birth are now both celebrated. The Abbey Church used to be more golden, but many of the valuables were lost at the Abbey's dissolution, including the original stained glass. These magnificent windows are of recent manufacture, financed by the 8th Librarian Green, who was a believer of the Second Dawn variety. So I will read those 3 solar books. We also have, I think this is a fairly tough one to open. Actually, you know what? 9 winter should be something that we can achieve, actually. Maybe I shouldn't be counting myself out quite yet. Definitely need more trips to the moor, I think. But I will kind of inventory the nave of the Abbey Church after a break. I do actually need to get some dinner. So again, I don't want to be too long, but I just need to catch up on all the stuff that I was doing before. So if you have not done so yourself, I encourage you to maybe get up, have a stretch, perhaps make some tea yourself. I am going to try and be quick about it, but I do actually want to make sure that I'm actually fed and like ready to go rather than picking away over the course of the stream. So I will see you all in a little bit. Until then, please don't go away. Unless it's for a stretch. I'll see you in a bit. All right. Sorry about the wait. I know that was longer than the usual breaks, but I did have quite a bit of dinner to finish. It was tasty. I'm happy to report. I have refilled my tea. It's a little hot, but we are ready to get back to the early beta of House of Light. And I think probably before the end of the night we will be able, to use some of the new content, not just to get, calling cards from people, but I think we are actually going to wind up making a couple of recipes. I don't want to rush it, right? Like the thing is that I'm playing this a little bit like if I were to played the House of Light on release, basically, is that I want to enjoy Book of Hours, and part of enjoying Book of Hours is... My goodness, that is still hot. But basically, the process of exploring the house is part of that as well. So in terms of cooking, you actually have to get fairly far into the house to wind up in the kitchen. Now, of course, I've sort of overdone it. Clearly, there's plenty to do inside here, but I still think I still think this is a worthwhile use of my time. Anyways. We have a few priorities for today. So one of them is going to be opening up the Rose Haunted Hall. I didn't actually look at what the other end was here, but this would be the Infested Wine Cellar. So this would probably be more suitable for the Traveling Barber. And even then, that's going to be a tougher one for me to handle. So I can take the Tryst with the Barber. That would bring 4. Now, if I want, I can just use the Skin-Shuck Mead, and we're done, right? I'd be reluctant to do it that way, though. So let me think here. If we had the Barber with a Tryst, that's 4. Now, if we added a Name Day Riddle, that brings it up to 7. At which point we could add the Shears, which makes that 8. And really, that's just a question of finding a 2 Moth Memory, which would probably just be an impulse. So in summer, I actually think we have a reasonable claim to opening up the Infested Wine Cellar. The Wounded Room, 8 hearts seems a little difficult, but not impossible. So that would also be true for the, the Maze Crazed Room. We'll be opening up the Rose Haunted Hall. And the Dim Hall, I think if we get Hail, will probably be okay. Not so sure about the Veiled Chamber. It would be nice to see whether or not I can make another Solomon's Preparation, actually. But... we'll wait for winter just so that I can actually start plucking some of the relevant flowers too. Anyways, before we go too far, let's take the time. I'm going to worry about pentiments and precursors first. Black Nephrite, I could take the Tryst, combine that with... Right, we needed a memory. I'm going to hold off on Black Nephrite, but I'm not going to use the Tryst right away either. So, still want to catalog books. So catalog a solar period, but oh, right, wait. I also want to generate an earth sign. Well, we'll still catalog 1 book. So this book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Solar Gothic period, roughly between the 1000s and 1500s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. We will use the Whist to read Wrapped in the King again. Health is going to be used to level up pentiments and precursors. And we'll hire the Orchard Keeper right away. In autumn, the Orchard Keepers come to sell their wares at Brandkrug. A shilling will buy one's health. Rainy day. Okay, that saves me the impulse, actually. Alternatively, I could level up pentiments and precursors with that, although I think the fear is more appropriate. Talk about the weather, more useful than one might expect, especially in Britain. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So we will move up pentiments and precursors. There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2, which will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting, and make it suitable for higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms, if you haven't already committed it. Alright. Help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Now, I would like to do more with the day, so I'm probably going to spend some money to restore elements of the soul, but again, we want to make sure that I have a little bit of a better balance before I go too far down that path. Okay, unhatched hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the Meniscate. So this is a Sabazine text, not something we can read right away, but it goes next to the Carbonex Schism. Take advantage of the weather while it lasts. So we can also give the Orchard Keeper the cake bowls. Or kitchen bowls. Cake time! I can lend my assistant something to help, increasing their abilities. The skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. So I'll probably restore the health at the Sweet Bones before the Whist. And part of that's because I want to keep talking with the Orchard Keeper and see if I can maybe get some moon to level up the, or to read one of the texts with. I am reluctant to use the Tryst to catalog the solar period text. Oh, sorry, I did say I was going to look at the church a little bit more. But I'm thinking maybe what we can do is use the Tryst to open up one of the packages if we don't have, if we're not able to read Black Nephrite. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So, bring back health first. This is mostly just because health is good for bringing back things like a pitcher of water or bringing up the pears and such. But in this case, really what we want is to bring the Orchard Keeper up to... Wait a minute. I could just use the dandelion wine. I think we'll still use the pears. Speak to an assistant. I think I misunderstood, or not misunderstood, but I think I tripped up a little bit in terms of the different things that I could do, but it's not gonna change my plan for today. Oh, there's our delivery from Catering Heroes. Something useful has arrived. Open a package. Unwrap, unbox, unleash. I actually kind of like how that comes partway through the day. Because obviously you don't get mail first thing, and my mail usually arrives in the afternoon. So... Okay, so we've got a bit of work ahead of us, so let's find a place for some of these. So, this is going to be a T. I guess we already put that in the relevant place, so I'll add this to the shelves. sugar. Cream it with butter in a mixing bowl. Add almonds and spices for jumble, or with an egg, a bowl, and care, and you can make meringue. Really wanted to put the sugar there. Okay, fair enough. Potatoes. Slice them with a knife and add dripping to make game chips, or roast them without dripping, with or without dripping. Oh, right. I have more than one, so... All right, milk. Mix in a bowl with flour to make dough, or pour over meringue for a sweet dish celebrated at Claridge's. Running out of space. All right, more ham, so that's going to have to... Right, where do I put the potatoes? Dripping, not an appetizing name, but use it to make rich leek or onion soup, or with or without a knife, use dripping to exalt potatoes to their full potential. And butter, try adding an egg or a pheasant, mix with sugar or flour in a bowl, or the culinary intrepid might add spice and moly. So I have absolutely no idea where I'm getting pheasant from. But at least we've unpacked everything. So yeah, clearly there is a lot as far as cooking is concerned. I can't put the tryst inside here, so really it's only our health that we can use with cooking right now. But that's fine. We'll learn as we go. Better now. Okay, I am actually a little curious here. So if I take the health, so there's a couple of things that it said I could do right away. So if I add, what was it? Pulverized grains, bread's precursor. A dish with, reg potatoes, a dish with edge, forge, heart, or winter. So I'm curious if we add the bronze knife. So that doesn't necessarily do anything on its own. Oh, because we need to add dripping. So roast potatoes magnificently. So we get Grail instead of winter then. And if we add the make game chips, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and knock. I feel like this is the sort of thing I'm actually going to want to write down. Okay, so this one's a pretty straightforward one to work out. So you can add the drippings, and I think it just recommends it here. Roast them with or without. Actually, yeah. I'm going to want to work out who my guests are before I make any final decisions here. Okay, add the knife. I am slightly curious here if I had spices and savers. Okay, that's just Thyrsa's cordials, so we don't wind up making any of that. So let's maybe just go with some of the things that the game has recommended. So dripping, not an appetizing name, but used to make rich leek or onion soup, or with or without a knife. Use dripping to exalt potatoes to their full potential. At that time had... I don't think I quite understand what you're asking, Ever-Waiting Sleeper. Milk, mix in a bowl with flour to make dough, or pour over meringue for a sweet dish celebrated at Claridge's. So I am actually going to need to make something with this, but let's... let's see what we can do. Alright, mixed dough, an ingredient for a higher purpose. This is kind of tempting to try on its own, but I'm right now just trying to learn some basics, so... I think it's pretty clear, though, I'm going to want to buy a lot more. And I don't have a meringue yet, so... Alright, sugar cream it with butter in a mixing bowl. Add almonds and spices for jumble, or with an egg bowl and care, you can make meringue. Yeah, mix creamed sugar. Now, presumably here... Okay, that doesn't work. Let's get the bowl back. Egg. Okay. Delicious when cooked, alarming when dropped. Well, I mean, there is, like, one of the things, these aren't just tools, like, they are tools, but, like, there is a whole kitchenware item which was added. This is actually in Book of Hours right now. So if you look there, the extra kitchenware slot, as well as the kitchenware, aspect is present inside the game. So there are, like, I guess for me, the thing is there are kitchen appliances in the game. I don't think you can make things without them, unless you're specifically referring to electronic ones that would be anachronistic for the setting. Obviously, those aren't in there. I have a feeling that probably there's some stuff that I can do with the ham, which I just haven't really learned yet. So adding an egg or pheasant. All right, well, let's see what happens if I add an egg. Well, I guess... Excuse me. Oh, make a scrambled egg. So no bowl, and we... nuts. Scale. Sky. Okay. So the thing is, I do imagine that there's going to be more. So I don't know if I add the knife, maybe. I think the game is going to prompt, but can't see how the bowl would be relevant here, but I mean, at this point, I'm just throwing stuff out there. That's not really good. I don't have moly, so that's not an option. I'm thinking probably some of the intermediate I should probably be making like dough and meringue so that I can learn a little bit more about what's possible. So I think what I'm going to do actually, I'm also curious if this does require an element of the soul. So if I want to make a meringue, that would be butter in a bowl. Yeah, and then I need to add... Okay. Good to know. I am not ready to commit the health to this yet, but we are definitely... There's two big things that are going to happen. One, we're definitely going to make some of the intermediate items. And then I'm also going to order in more stuff, because I very clearly will need more of just about everything. Although it would be helpful to sort of know what intermediate ingredients I'm going to use more than others. So I will do that. I definitely think we're going to use Terrence and Tuppence quite a bit more. And I think in the end, one thing I'm going to want to do is just commit more things to the Tree of Wisdoms, simply because I can't see me doing that much with this many elements of the soul. Now, again, admittedly, I am still doing things like catalog books and such, but I don't know. I feel like there's definitely more that we can be doing. So we'll chat about the health. Again, we need the 7 for the Rose Haunted Hall, so we will give them the pairs. I suppose that's... Well, I couldn't add the health at that point, so... Still have an outside chance of getting the book Black Nephrite read, but I have a feeling the Tryst is probably going to be used for opening a package today. We'll work alongside each other. I can offer my assistants something to eat. This will increase their aspects. It's also just friendly. I think at this point, I should probably consider packing in it as far as the reading the book is concerned. I'll maybe try one more chat with the Orchard Keeper. Could encourage my assistant, work with them for a little while, exalt them, or I could just listen to whatever they might have to say. So in terms of the longer term first course, yeah, this counts as a cooking ingredient. So does the dandelion wine, though. I've learned something, or perhaps just remembered it. Alright, the stolen secret does the trick, so I'm not going to Not gonna give up. Sea stories. And then we add the lunar globe. I can master this mystery. Enough moon to match. Mystery moon. Okay. And as far as the Orchard Keeper goes, we do have the Solace already. As far as existing texts are concerned, none of these do all that much. I should probably take some time to decide if I want to push further with the Wayne Scott histories, the Furs and Feathers, the Sky Stories, or What Does Not Bark, but I'll leave that for later. I think hanging on to the Solace probably makes as much sense as anything else. Let's open up the Rose-Haunted Hall. This room is rife with climbing roses tangled in the lamps sprawled across the table. The blossoms are a deep, deep red, one of the colors not often seen in waking life, and their perfume makes my head swim. Another of Van Loren's protections, or something else. In any case, it'll be arduous, careful work to clear it. And finally, I'm going to make good on my promise to read the items in the church. So we've got the vase of amaryllis, a soft-flowered ornament, a small candlestick, simple elegance, a vase of lilies, an elegant ornament, more candlesticks, uncomfortable seats shaped to assure the attention of the faithful. We have a solar altar. The sun in splendor is the hour which was sundered, the hour which is not conquered, the hour from which proceed all the other hours of the day, or so the church teaches. We have got the organ. One must practice slowly, and then more slowly, and finally slowly. Camille Saint-Saëns. We've got the watchman. Stained glass window, the watchman. The way is lit for the willing and for the unwilling. The menascate. What is within without, what is without within. Sun in rags. When it ends, it will be a beautiful ending. The madrigad. That which is not needed, that shall be quenched. And as we said, 3 solar period books, one of which we've cataloged. That is a potent tea that I made. I think I forgot to take the tea bag out. It'd be nice if I could find some place to put the Eigengrau, but honestly at this point it's... Well, this does count as a cooking ingredient. I think the pantry is going to be quite full. Alright, the refectory. Here, the whole curia used to meet, the librarian and the secretary salvant, vigilant and enigmatic. Sometimes even the secretary nunciant, though the duties of that office usually kept him away from the house. There's only ever been one secretary persistent, and she has never liked to eat in company. That was, I believe that is Rowena, by the way. I think there's an indication for that. That was in the good times of the curia's heyday. In later years, the governor of the jail would sit at one end, the librarian at the other, and the clock would tick away the long silences between their words. So, the Mask Watch clock, reputedly crafted for the Mask of Masks during the Great Writhing. We have the hatching, human figures crawl from a clamshell. Portrait of a behatted lady, the more prominent of the headgear, the closer to the glory. We've got a vase of lilies. And we have a salon in the refectory. The room where the curia met, or once the curia met, a fitting venue for a salon. Here one might serve lunch in the afternoon or supper in the evening. A good host will provide at least one first course, one main course, one side dish, and one pudding. I'll actually make a note of that as well, because I am going to need to figure out the different items that I can create. So, one first course, one main, one side dish, One pudding. And of course, there's going to be the question of who I invite, but I'm going to, again, I want to sort of figure out what I'm able to make before I go too far. Now, we do have the Heart-Haunted Room. 8 hearts seems pretty tricky to get, so I'm going to be relying on Grail or Moon, neither of which is any easier. But again, I have special hirelings that I can bring in, and I also have the option of committing certain things to the Tree of Wisdoms. We're still getting books, so I don't want to fully plan out the Tree of Wisdoms quite yet. But I at least have some basics. And we'll be committing the Solace when the time comes. Or keeping the Solace. Night is fallen, dawn will come soon. Now that night is fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Now, my health is going to be quite popular, so I need that to generate water. I also need that to generate vegetables, which I'll be feeding to Terrence and Tuppence to get eggs. We already have a hen's egg to get us started, but clearly there's going to be more. The other thing that I want to keep in mind is that I do have, so there's a lot of cooking ingredients that are not necessarily in the pantry. So there's going to be a bunch of things that I want to try in the future. But again, I don't want to be too, spread out because I don't have all that many elements of the soul to use on this. I really only have one for the cooking. So I need to sort of pick my battles. Black Nephrite, one of Valentine de Wolf's dream journals, in which he records his visions of a place that is no place, beneath the house that is no house. The dark, inchoate, feral space described by Valentine seems to be nowhere, the nowhere of the invisible arts, the infra-oniric layer of the alien hours, sometimes called gods from nowhere. Valentine's attitude to the nowhere hours is unexpectedly relaxed. He speaks darkly of their appetites, but he insists that they are too alien to penetrate the house of the sun, let alone the waking world. He even seems to suggest that the Mansus hours have exaggerated the threat of the nowhere hours for their own reasons. Not all birds are trustworthy in their feathers, he warns. Alright, so more fear and wolf stories. So I may need to be rearranging the library before too long, but I'm happy to work within the current constraints. And easy choice to learn wolf stories. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. Okay. So I think definitely we keep going with the letters for the sweet bones. We are going to be buying up some more items for the kitchen. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug and not everyone here knows their letters. And I think I'm just going to go running ahead, and we're going to catalog the last 2 solar books. So we'll use Fet for that, and we'll use Whist for that. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Solar Gothic period, roughly between the 1000s and 1500s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. And similarly, Whist. Still don't know what the weather is yet, but I'm going to draw up the water, lower the bucket, creaking into the dark. And we can't yet unpack something with the tris. Alright, another rainy day. Don't really have any grail or nectar to sort of throw at this. Obviously, actually that's not entirely true. We have the Creeper Crowded Descent, so I could theoretically... I have not gotten Numa yet, Ever-Waiting Sleeper, so it's that's not unusual. We've really only had the first year, so it's getting more likely, but we're not fully committed to it yet. I think what I'll do here is I'll use the last of the I can use the last of the dandelion wine to level up the Orchard Keeper. So I'm going to have to wait for after our first run with the Sweet Bones, but I'm definitely not opposed to, especially because it's using a rain, so we're not giving up the earth sign. Definitely not opposed to heading down to the Creeper Crowded Descent. Okay, another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. Wolf stories. Sometimes we eat the wolf, and sometimes the wolf eats us. Let's use that tryst to open up the package. This is the Contraband Flotsam, Salt Stained, and Wave Racked. What ship lost this? I think we might have to open up a second container, if that's the one. But we'll see what it gets me. I don't expect this Numa to be all that exciting, if I'm that honest. So we've got Quenchings and Quellings we might be able to turn into a couple of lessons learned, but I don't know. I think if I get too ambitious in Numa, that seems like a really good recipe for winding up with fewer skills than I started with. Okay, The World Does Not Weep. This is one that is actually possible for us to read, although we would have more than one result from putrefactions and calcinations, I'm sure. So now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. The World Does Not Weep. Brown Joshua found this in a well in Hamath. It's an unlikely story that there's an unlikely story that it was abandoned by Alexander during his retreat from Issus. So if I wanted to read this one, we've got Quenchings and Quellings 4. So if we add the Whist to that, that's 6. Yeah, actually, that's kind of interesting. So we can get up to 6 with the Whist, but then the only memory we could really throw at it right now would be a Hindsight, which brings us up to 8. If we get Snow, that brings it up to 9, but we don't have a Winter Tool. So oddly enough, this actually winds up in the 10 pile. And Udrokas, not cursed, but it is in a language we don't understand, so adding that one to the list. Alright, well, I'm happy that we've got the books cataloged. I don't think we'll see any books down here in the Creeper Crowded Descent, but at least we can move on it. And yeah, honestly, at this point, I think it's not a bad little in-between day. I think it's good that I'll be able to use the last of the Orchard Keepers to get myself further. Yeah, let's do the hiring. In autumn, the Orchard Keepers come to sell their wares at Brankrug. A shilling will buy one's help. So we'll start with the rain, talk about the weather, more useful than one might expect, especially in Britain. So that'll take them up to 4, and yes, we did wind up with more Forsaken packages, so we're going to have to wait for the next day to open those. But again, it's pretty much packages only for the next little while. We may change it up in terms of the winter, because we will have a moon. Yeah, I think it's moon. It's moon and sky for the fishermen. But the moon stuff that I'm trying to open is pretty tough. So we've got 8. We'll have the Creeper Crowded Descent open, so that's not too tough. 9 for the Veiled Chamber, and again, we're probably going to take Mr. Kill for that. And eventually, when we have either Faust or Forge, we can probably open up the Windprowled Gallery. But I think before we do that, I'm probably just going to wind up making some tea and then bringing along, or making some dishes. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. Okay, so I'm going to keep the packages in the inventory, but I am going to at least pour a glass of water. Pour out. Pour it out. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. For a tool, I can lend my assistant something to help increasing their abilities. And then from there, we were looking for 7, 8, so we can give them the dandelion wine. I can actually pour that now. Not burn it. Pour it out. I forgot to put the whisk back on that cycle. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. Okay, so pears and wine, and we should be good to send the orchard keeper out. I can offer my assistant something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. And I think we're probably going to get the pears from... at the very least, these will be replacement pear. Oh. I should have paid closer attention. I don't have replacement pears. So, grapes will work. But grapes are only available in spring and summer. I think probably the smarter choice at this point is to just use the health, so... Yeah, a little bit of a shame. I could have planned that better, but we'll take the memory from the orchard keeper, and we'll use the health instead. We're getting to the end of autumn, so I don't know. It'd be nice if I could have a little bit more, but we'll get to where I want by the end of the season, and then I don't know, if we don't have that much to do with the guests, that'll be a good chance to just sort of take care of all the packages. So we've got the 3 in my inventory, we've got 1 box of oddities in the pantry, and then we have the bag of tricks. Another solace. Okay. I'm ready to lend my limbs. Boosts heart, scale, and nectar. Okay, so the last question here is, do I want to try and dig out any more memories? I think in this case we will keep talking to the orchard keeper just because, you know, we're not expecting anything from the creeper-crowded descent. It's a way I can maybe make a little bit more out of the day. I don't think we're going to be able to restore the whist in a way that we can make money. Yeah. I think I'll just let that stay put. Not the most productive day money-wise, but money isn't everything. The only question for me is I don't know if we're going to cross over into winter or not. And I can afford to just kind of keep talking to the Orchard Keeper because in the end, we know we can open up the Creeper Crowded Descent. As far as future plans go, so Debellis Murorum, not immediately clear how we're going to do that. I think the Sun's Lament is just a question of putting together the right elements at this point. And then Journal of Walter de Wolf, I think we're guaranteed to get it if I get myself the metal, but I've been resisting that so far. One more chat with the Orchard Keeper. See, I think tomorrow, unless we wind up with something special as far as the memories or the weather goes, I think we're going to focus a little bit more on opening the various packages. Okay, I gotta make some decisions, but the Creeper Crowded Descent leaves flowers and thorns, especially thorns. So I can bring in Solace or Satisfaction. I'll try the Solace. You never know when you're gonna need some heart and sky, but it's also just because I sort of know that I'm not really going to be able to do much with Grail. I don't have a way of bringing in a higher Grail character. But I can see a situation where I might want to bring in the Sky either through Mr. Kill or potentially through combining various Sky elements. So if I can't open a room with a storm, one thing I might want to do is try and combine it into something that could become a Swaddled Thunder. Because if I can get a Swaddled Thunder, then that means that I'm going to be able to, it means I'm going to be able to summon the storm whenever I want. So that's a reasonably high priority item to get, but it's not an easy item to get, particularly if you're being stingy with the memories like I am. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. So I think I'm going to run ahead and gather the pears. Let's see what the weather brings. But I'm going to go to the Sweet Bones for help with letters. I gotta offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Okay, it's a foggy day. It's still autumn. So, this is not a bad time for me to check a couple of assumptions here. So if I think about the fog, so if we bring in Reverend Tim, so that's 1 knock. Fog is worth 3. We don't have a shaft to add. But I think I do have a pattern. Yeah. Oh, right, but the pattern is already... yeah, this is not very well conceived on my part. So we've got 4 so far. Don't have an element of the soul to bring to bear, which is a pretty big problem for me. No knock tools to speak of. Again, everybody likes pointing out the Hush House key, and I like to point out that it's a key and a thing, not a tool. We could theoretically give him a candle. That's a honey-scarred scented candle, so I would need moth. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why I thought... well, probably because we've got the Acite grape juice. But I'm not so sure this is the... Not sure this is the time to use it. So I can't keep the fog for winter. Have I brought in Mr. K? So Trist is 1. Fog is 3, which brings us up to 4. Well, that just brings us back to the same place we were. So there's a little bit that I can get. If I needed some more moon. I don't think the Eigengrau is the best that I can do. I think the Eigengrau is only worth the 1 moon. I thought for some reason the Evening Isles coffee would be moon, but it's not. I guess we do have the Mist-Kissed Water in the observatory. So that would take us up to 6. And there are moon food items. The mackerel, for instance, is worth 2. Okay, well, it does give me the 8 moon. Okay, how do I feel about this overall? So we bring in Mr. Kill, which would cost us the Whist. Trist Fog. Mist-Kissed Water, which I can't get back, really. No, you know what? This stuff exists to be consumed, so I think we're gonna push it a bit and bring Mr. Kill in. Speak with Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. Now, now that we know what the weather is, we can use this FET to open up something odd. Crack open the container. Delight in your discovery. Oh, it's winter. Crap. I really wish that... I really wish it told me that, because I'd hire a fisherman instead. I've carried the memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. Okay, well, you know what? That's fine. No point crying about it. We've got the well descent. Rungs line the well's side. This must lead down to the oldest part of the isle, to the shrines of the Sisterhood. It may be that the servants of the De Wolf family still came here in secret, even while they paid lip service to the rites of the unconquered sun. Here we have the Root Throng descent, so it would have been nice if we took a gardener to that, but that's fine. It's not something that we immediately need to get to anyway. But yeah, we'll see what the season brings. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. So this one might just be conversation at this point. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. So if the fishermen start off with 2 moon, it would seem to me that we can feed them the fish without having to worry about the Mist-Kissed Water, which is the scarcest of my ingredients. Okay, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Before we open to a future cycle, in winter, when the storms close the seas, the fishermen will offer their services for a shilling a day. Fishermen will offer moon and a little sky, alternatively add a soul card to find rarer guests who might be seeking employment. So we'll make the most of the fishermen while we can. This is going to be primarily moon stuff, but I will potentially do some of the sky things as well. Obviously, the sky things I need to somehow convince myself that I need to use the fisherman rather than Mr. Kill, but there can be situations where I might prefer it. Namely, if I don't want to give up the whist. Sometimes it's a little cheaper to just spend the money. Fishermen's assistants. Fishermen in this part of the world have a reputation as smugglers and worse than smugglers. Those days are past, mostly, and mostly they just catch pilchards now, but they still remember the words spoken in silence to the moon and the sea. Okay. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the Sweet Bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. So I suppose I should double check exactly what I'm trying to open up here. So, yeah, none of these are an option. Heart Haunted Room, 8 moon. 9 for the Veiled Chamber. Okay, we've got something we can work with. All right, Lignum Vitae Blanc. I wasn't expecting that, but there we go. And we will take the box of oddities. Doesn't hurt to mouse over the container or cache sign just to make sure I'm not missing anything obvious, but I think it's just the bag of tricks. Yep. So we'll just leave that there. Dr. Yvette Southey, somebody I do not believe is in my Rolodex yet. Does know Kernwek Kennebec as well as Erica Payan, but we do want to make sure that she's happy before we go further. Dr. Yvette Southey, playwright, philologist, psychoanalyst, is happy with questions as with answers, and we are working on The Affair of the Friar's Tapestry. A tapestry has been stolen from the Ostorium that depicts details of a very old rite indeed, one that may only be performed at Gladwin Lake when the moon is ripe. Exactly what it might renew is unclear, but almost inevitably someone will try it anyway. Presumably she's moon. Yeah. And the question is, when do I talk to her? Probably the end of the day. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? Alright, let's get going with the fisherman's assistant. So first of all, we'll talk about the fog. That's 5. And then 6 for the tryst. Now I can actually get them up to 7 with the... I can get them up to 7 with the lunar glow, which makes me think that it might be a good idea to feed them the mackerel. Fragrant pears, soft in the hand. Oops. Not quite ready for the frozen pears. So I'm going to use the glass of water to restore the health. I think with the restored health, what I would prefer to get would be the... right, we've used up the water. So it would be, there's an idea of using the water, but I think in this case I'm actually going to pluck some blue crown because I would eventually like to try and make Solomon's Preparation. I want to make Solomon's Preparation, well, I guess I don't need that for the Veiled Chamber now that I think of it, but Solomon's Preparation is still helpful to have, so I'm sticking with it. I also need to figure out what I want to do with the occult scrap, but we'll worry about that next. Secret sorrows may join our strengths, boosts moon and moth. Now, I don't know about the Mist-Kissed Water, but I feel like with the moon, I do want to make sure I take care of the bigger room with my moon first, because I'm not always going to have a fog. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a tough call, but I think we'll also get some books from the the chancel as well. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. What comes, neither of us knows yet, but we will. So we'll add the lunar globe. That brings us up to 7. And then again, we get 2 from the mackerel, or pickled mushrooms actually doesn't give us 2, but pickled pilchards does. All right. I can offer my assistants something to eat. This will increase their aspects. It's also just friendly. So I'm intrigued by the fact that the pickled pilchards are not an ingredient, but the mackerel is. So I might want to hang on to the mackerel for a little bit longer. Not sure this is quite what I need to do right now, but poach the mackerel. All right. A dish with forge, heart, and moon. Good Lord. Sorry, my pencil doesn't seem to want to work. There we go. So, forge, heart, moon. So the answer to that's really to look at the Pilis oat bread in the Keeper's Lodge. So it does tell you, in this case, first course. So, I mean, it's not directly the grain suffers bread. The grain suffers so that they may enter into us and be one with us. So in this case here, it's not direct, right? Well, no, sorry, it does call it first course. Yeah, first course, main, side dish, and pudding. So in this case, making the item will, to directly answer your question, making the item will say it. Now, you can probably make some reasonable guesses, right? So poached mackerel does not strike me as the sort of thing that's, you know, a pudding. But I mean, let's face it, it's probably more fun to make this stuff anyway. I'm ready, but for what? I don't think that's how I want to do this. I'm sure there's something more elegant that I can do than, you know, just throw random stuff in, but... Sugar, obviously. Ooh, mackerel kedgeree. Interesting. So the egg on its own doesn't change the aspects, although there may be a different intensity in terms of the different aspects. Honeyed mackerel. Uh-oh, where'd it go? There we go. Pickled mackerel, there we go. Does it have to be the whole bottle? I guess the individual glasses of things don't count as... the Sly Alembic probably isn't a good example. Do I not have a glass anymore? No, we have to. There's like Strathcoyne's whiskey. That works? Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, we don't need to add the whole bottle. Cool. That's a good one to know. Yeah, so definitely one that I want to experiment with, and it's definitely going to be one where I sort of feel the pinch as far as... actually, there's one last one that I can try. I don't know if Spices and Savors is going to change the calculation at all, but... not on its own. There's his cordials, huh? Oh, for... I can grow? There we go. Okay, cool. So what I want to do sort of over the long run is just keep an eye out for these ingredients. So I don't know much about the teas. It looks like there's going to be some way for me to combine those, but... might be kind of fun to actually see what the different breads can do as well. So if I'm getting my health back... Right, it was so that I can pluck Blue Crown. Gather in winter, few flowers flourish in the depths of winter. Blue Crown is one of those few. But yeah, I don't know. I did kind of want to make a dish today, but in terms of today's playthrough, but I'm actually kind of okay saving it just so that I can think a little bit about the guests that I'm going to have. I will make sure before the end, though, I'm going to sketch out a guest list and see roughly how I'm gonna plan it. Okay, so we have a fisherman with 9, so that'll open up the Veiled Chamber. This has long been a very holy place, too holy to be left untended safely for this long. There are 77 candles, and each one burns with a chill blue flame, each flame inhabited by a watchful spirit. I should not enter until each flame has been cleansed or extinguished. Now, I could chat with Yvette Southey right away, or I can talk with Mr. Kill for more memories. I mean, I can already keep the solace, so let's talk with Dr. Southey first. Playwright, philologist, psychoanalyst is happy with questions as with answers. Hello there, got a moment? Let us talk about the affair of the Friar's Tapestry. A patient of mine is troubled by a dream of a lake. He swims out, he dives, he is reborn beneath the moon. We identified it just last month as Gladwin Lake. He has never been there, he wants to go, and now, just now, I hear about this business of the tapestry and the rite. So we're going to want to talk about Moon. What does not bark should do the trick, I think. The best outcome, librarian, seems to be that the rite involves the hour named Applebright, the worst that it involves the crowned growth, and both of these are nowhere hours. No one has ever been prepared to tell me what that really means, but I know enough not to roll around in it. This has helped a little. I still have no idea what to tell my patient, but I think that he will go, whatever happens. That seems to be the shape of these things. Always the tide. Now I am going to want to find a use for the occult scrap before too long, seeing as adding Dr. Southey will give me another occult scrap. Whatever we have left, we can just chat with Mr. Kill for the coffin maker's assistance. But this is just, unfortunately, misused whist. I wish I didn't, but winter kind of crept up on me, so I live with the consequences. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. So I'm not opposed to holding on to Memory Solace. I suppose Impulse might be kind of interesting too, given that that could potentially double up with the occult scrap. But let's see what we've got here. The Chancel of the Abbey Church. The Church of the Unconquered Sun acknowledges only a handful of hours: the sun in rags or splendor, the Menascate, the Madrigad, the Watchman, and reluctantly the Wolf Divided. Any other so-called hours must be lesser powers, wicked impostors, or superstitions. So the Church denies 2 of the 3 hours of the Chancel, and yet it's the Chancel who are said to determine which of their peers qualify as hours. That's theology for you. Abbot Geoffrey decreed that all 3 should be venerated in this holiest of rooms. To avoid actual heresy, he would not permit any of the 3 to be named. That's theology too. We do not name these hours, but we acknowledge that together they are the Chancel, the Cruciate, and the Road. So this will accept Edge, Moth, and Winter. Devotion gives us element of the soul, a pet, an omen, a mark, or a light. This will accept. I'm just mostly interested in the memory. So one of the things that I'm kind of interested in here, I guess the occult scrap counts as a omen. So if I put in the impulse, that still gives me another moth memory that I can put in. And then we can potentially combine that to try and get something like a name day riddle. Although the challenge is that the name day riddle is a temporary one, so I need to think specifically what I get out of that. Now, as far as the items in this room, we have the History Wax Candle, a candle made with the oils of the History plant, Agave Eterna. We have Ichor Vitreous, a pale and watchful fluid that can be gathered sometimes when the door in the eye is opened. We have Ichor Auroral. No dawn knows only a single color. No sky knows only a single dawn. And 3 solar and 1 dawn period book. And then we do have the Shrouded Stair, not actually that hard to navigate. With Reverend Timothy and his 2 lantern. This is an interesting one actually because I don't have the Faust, but so if we had Reverend Timothy, he starts with 2 lantern. We could give him a revelation, which will bring him up to 4, and we could use the mirror scope, which will bring him up to 5. So I suppose if I just give him one of the generic candles, this would be a little too much. Actually, this wouldn't work at all because it doesn't have lantern. But if we gave him one of the simple candles, like the Widow's Candle is moon. You mean to tell me there isn't? I mean, I suppose another alternative would be I can feed him the coffee or the second flush of Sam. That might work too. But yeah, so I don't think the Shrouded Stair is all that tough. We'll probably read a book to make that work, actually. Okay, Yvette's card and a bronze Spintria. So we're back up to tin. Oh, sorry, silver. And we should be good for another chat with Mr. Kill. Again, the boxes are still going untouched, but we've had other opportunities, so. Few flowers flourish in the depths of winter. Blue Crown is one of those few. So I'd prefer to keep the Blue Crown in the place that I'm most likely to use it. I know one of the challenges that I run into is Hush House starts looking like a greenhouse. And Blue Crown is also a cooking ingredient. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, the recipes are definitely going to... there's like a little bit of a preview that we've gotten in terms of all of the different blogs that Weather Factory's been putting out, but I rarely actually look at the things that sort of tell me what the gameplay is going to be like. So, I don't know. Let's see what we can keep overnight. Best for me would be Impulse, but I don't think that's compatible. Nope. So we keep the Solace. I mean, I could wait the 23 seconds, but I'll just hang on to the Solace. And I think I'll leave it there. So we'll wait for dawn. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So I think I'll say this is the last day for the playthrough tonight, but what I am going to do is I'm going to take a couple of minutes at the end of the broadcast just to work out. The intuition actually would have been good to hang on to, but I couldn't bring Moon or Rose, so not a major loss. But yeah, so what I'm thinking here is I could probably work out what the guests for the first salon are going to be, and then I can see whether or not they're going to be happy with the different dishes that I prepare. So for that, okay, so Eason is heart. D.I. Moore is lantern. Agdistis. Sky. Nectar. Serena. Forge. Connie. Moon. Fraser. Scale. No word yet as to what Yvette's going to be. I would make a guess, Moon, but that's mostly driven by the fact that that was what they asked for. So if we were... So actually, I guess the other thing that I would point out is that we now have more guests, more potential guests than we have places. So if I use this room as an example, so this one will allow for a visitor or a villager. Here one might serve lunch in the afternoon or supper in the evening. A good host will provide at least one first course, one main course, one side dish, and one pudding. So we have room for, let's say, 4 guests and one of the villagers. So with the potatoes, that gives us Edge, Forge, and Heart, and then that's a question of Winter, Grail, or Knock. Now, interestingly enough, between Winter, Grail, and Knock, none of those actually affect any of the people I can currently invite, right? So we've got Heart, Lantern, Sky, Nectar, Forge, Moon, and Scale. Note that none of those say Knock, Grail, or Winter. So potatoes will take care of Forge and Heart. So Serena and Eason are taken care of. Scrambled eggs, Grail, Heart, Scale, and Sky. So Heart again, Fraser, and Agdistis. Poached mackerel can take care of Forge, Heart, and Moon, or Edge, Heart, Moon, and Scale. Got another Forge for sure. Another Heart. So Eason is definitely going to be invited just because he's very easy to keep happy. Connie now has a Moon dish. hang on. Okay. So Edge, Heart, Moon, and Scale. So I guess that's another one for Fraser. Well, I wasn't originally planning on inviting, but... Okay, so presumably the potatoes would be the side dish. Poached mackerel would probably be a main. The bread could maybe be a first course. Okay, so my guest shortlist would be Eason, Serena, Connie, and I guess it would be Fraser if I was willing to make it poached mackerel. And then I suppose the question would be... Yeah, no, that's a good start. I may change this around a little bit based on what the last item would be, but I can see this doing something. So with that in mind, at some point what I'm going to need to figure out is if I take my papers. So I think what I could do here is we could say Peribiot, and then... Ooh, this is going to be a tricky one. Right, so we got to do that at the desk. So if we say these, then we can add the earth sign. Then we can add horns and ivories. There we go. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Strathcroyne to Brankrug. Okay. So, I have Peribiot to invite Eason. And Fraser. Catwink for Connie. Now, presumably, we don't need Orpiment Exultant for Serena Blackwood. I actually don't think I have a forge. Yeah, I don't think there's a way for me to test exactly how I can bring Serena in. But yeah, Serena Blackwood's the only open question in terms of it. So I think probably I'll say maybe winter. I'm not 100% sure. One other thing I might want to keep in mind, so with Eason, I would want a heart bed, I think. Yeah, so we can keep him in the infirmary. A forge bed. Probably something I need to sort out in these rooms. So, a small worry that depending on Serena's needs, we may not be able to keep her in Hush House. Connie Lee... I actually don't think we have a moon room either. Fraser Strathcoyne, we definitely don't have a scale bed. So, yeah, I guess the tricky part here will be if I invite multiple guests and I'm not in a position to... like if they don't all show up at the same time, or maybe if they do show up all at the same time and I'm not able to start the salon, yeah, this might actually get kind of tricky as far as invitations go. But honestly, I think it's just better that we try this stuff. I don't have that many things that I'll have to give up in order to make it, so that's a plus. But I would like to... I don't know. I'd like to make a good effort at putting on a good first gathering. So we'll see. The other thing that I need to work out is how to open up this room. There's nothing like immediately important in the Heart Haunted room, but just being able to take advantage of the moon, of the fisherman, and the extra moon that they give, just pushes me a little bit ahead of some of my other goals. But I'm pretty happy with how this has gone. So we've got a rough idea in terms of how cooking works. We broke a couple of rooms that I didn't think we were going to be able to. And then as far as plans for opening things up, we at least have something to work on the Shrouded Stair. And I wouldn't be surprised if we were at least able to make it to the Heart Haunted room. Now, one of the things that might make the salon a little bit funny is if I wind up with a bunch of lessons and therefore skills that I didn't necessarily want to move up, that's going to involve a little bit of thinking in terms of how I commit things to the Tree of Wisdoms. But honestly, that's also not a hardship. Like, at some point I am going to need to settle this stuff for myself. And I have like a little bit of an idea in terms of how these different items are going to go, but it's just I don't have to be married to the particular approach that I took. And I really should be at the point where I can say, okay, you know what? I am actually going to commit X instead of Y. And here's the path that I'm going to go down, particularly with regards to Horamakastri. I did actually spend some time working out a bit in terms of what skills I would commit. But in the end, I'm going to be short of the 8 that I need for everything. There's going to be a little bit of backfilling that I need to do. So I don't have, like, it's not really an all hands on deck kind of trade-off. I can think a little bit in terms of what will give me the most flexibility. But obviously, we also have limited elements of the soul at this point, so it's not a major hardship for me to say, okay, we're sort of holding back in terms of skills. We're going to try and commit the things that make the most sense to us. And then, once we have a little bit more, once we feel a little more constrained in terms of what we can do, I start committing some things. I get some more elements of the soul, and we're able to sort of just start moving that floor of what we can achieve up until we have a clearer idea. But I think next stream, which will be Monday, I'd be very surprised. I think it's almost certain that I'm going to at least cook a dish or 2 or 3. I would like to host the salon, but again, it depends on a couple of details in terms of how that works. And if we don't host it, at the very least, I'll try and make some progress on the books. Again, we've got 4 that we need to catalog here. And then I don't know if we'll find anything in the Shrouded Stair, but there's at least 1 more room, probably 2, that we'll be unlocking. Of course, all of that will be handled in a future playthrough. We are 26. Okay, let's see who is online tonight. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm sorry it was a little more quiet. But I did get started a little bit later because of work. Let's see if anybody's doing Book of Hours. Just me. Cultist Simulator? No. So I think I'm going to host Kilgore Trout tonight, who is playing Darklands. Kilgore Trout's a pretty unique streamer. I originally found him through the GOG stream team. But he does a lot of classic games and will very often play them on original hardware. But he also has a very sizable movie collection. So one thing that he will do is he'll do box and movie hype, and that's usually where he brings out either boxes for classic games. He still has his original boxes, so like, Tomb Raider in the weird not box shape. But stuff like that, usually related to the games that he plays. And then the movie hype is just sometimes there'll be an event that happens, or there'll be a bit of news, or there's something appropriate to the theme. Either way, it's just something that gives him a chance to sort of show off a bit of the collection and talk about the movies. So anyways, a unique broadcaster, and he's also a fellow Canadian, so somebody I like to show the support to. Again, I've never seen Darklands, so I'm not really sure what it is about, but I will find out in his channel. And as for me, again, I will be back on Monday. I have quite a bit to record, so I ran out of runway in terms of the playthrough on YouTube, but I am going to record some more of those tomorrow. And then for those of you you have been following the roguelike streams, those I'll be recording as well. But anyways, have a good night, everybody. Enjoy Kilgore.